finally got his ass in gear and he looked for an open seat. The sea of bodies dressed in orange jumpsuits blurred into a giant blob as his heart raced and his mind tried to make sense of what just happened. That was not how the breakfast line was supposed to go. He should have heard from his boss by now. Harlow had promised to send word through Roger before Grizz's sentencing, but every day Roger gave him the same almost imperceptible headshake. That was bad news, made even worse because his sentencing hearing was just hours away. It seemed unthinkable that Harlow would simply kick an asset like Grizz to the curb after everything he'd done, which led him down a dark path as he settled into a seat between a hulking bear shifter, said to have killed his own brother in a jealous rage, and a panther shifter in for burglary. Had Harlow set him up? That was hard to believe, but he was flying blind now. All he knew was that his draconic instincts were giving him a bad feeling in his gut. Later that afternoon, when the guard removed Grizz's shackles in the courtroom, he flexed his hands and smiled his gratitude at the man, hiding the fact that his heart felt like it might explode right out of his chest. His little dose of freedom came with a much bigger dose of anxiety, making him feel more caged than ever. The courtroom was a din of shuffling papers, men and women in sharp suits bustling around, and a conspicuous lack of Harlow anywhere in sight. Grizz gulped a deep breath, trying to remain calm, or at least appear that way. Harlow would show. He had to. If he didn't... The back of Grizz's neck itched as everyone in the gallery watched him take his seat next to his court-appointed attorney. The man barely acknowledged his presence. He didn't matter anyway. Only Harlow mattered, so Grizz kept his gaze fixed on the door he knew the judge would walk through any moment. Surely Harlow was with the judge at that very moment, telling him the way things were and that the next defendant should be released immediately. That had to be it. After he was released, Grizz would make Harlow buy him a stiff drink at their favorite neighborhood watering hole, and they'd laugh over how worried he'd been. When the judge swept into the courtroom, Grizz tried to read the woman's expression, but it was inscrutable. Either she'd been educated by Harlow and was pissed off about the state of affairs, or she had a terminal case of resting bitch face. One last glance back at the gallery confirmed Harlow was nowhere to be seen. Grizz swallowed hard, hoping against hope his boss had made good on his promise. "Mr. Magna, please rise," the judge instructed as she scanned a folder in front of her. "Based upon the evidence presented during your trial and the nature and circumstances of the events described in those proceedings, I conclude that a just punishment for your actions is as follows. On the first count, murder in the first degree, you are hereby sentenced to serve the rest of your natural life in a Los Angeles maximum security prison without the possibility of parole. On the second count..." The judge's voice droned on as the color drained from Grizz's face. The stir of the crowd behind him seemed pleased. Life in prison. Human prison. Shifters sentenced to human prisons wore their restraint collars 24/7, and with a life sentence ahead of him, Grizz would never be able to shift again as long as he lived.
"No,"
he murmured, looking to his attorney.
"This isn't right."
His attorney looked at him blandly as the gavel crashed down.
"That's what they all say, man. Sorry."
Had Grizz ever bothered to remember the man's name, he might have called him out as a shitty excuse for a lawyer instead of watching him saunter out of the courtroom toward freedom. A hand on his shoulder made him jump. The guard loomed over him as Grizz scanned the room again, desperate for a glimpse of his boss or anyone who might have been sent by him. Only a handful of people met his gaze, and they certainly didn't look like friendlies. Before he even realized what was happening, 2 guards were leading him out the back of the courtroom. They would take him back to the transport, and he'd be sent to a human prison forever. This couldn't be happening, but it was, and no one would save him. No one but himself. Time for Plan B. A lifetime of experience calmed the raging waters inside of him as he formulated a quick and dirty plan. The 3 men walked in a single-file line, Grizz in the middle,